That was Loudness and SDI, a track off their sixth studio album, Lightning Strikes, released in 1986. What a storming song, Ripper. This album was titled Shadows of War in Japan, with a slightly different track list and different cover art. So yeah, you guessed it, it's me, I'm back. Analog Attack. Today we're going to be tackling Japanese heavy metal, a bit of an introduction for you. Nothing too deep, but I've got a lot of great records to show. So let's get into it, shall we? So early 80s Japanese heavy metal, we can just speculate what the influences were. Accept, Scorpions, Dio, Ozzy, you know, all the early 80s heavy metal. A bit of new wave of British heavy metal. But for me, a lot of the Japanese bands are very, very flashy, very flamboyant, a little bit more American sound, but all of these bands have their own sort of unique Japanese twist to them. And I would say, especially obviously, there's the language for a start, and also the sort of vocal delivery. A lot of these bands have this very sort of mournful, sorrowful vocal delivery, which reminds me a lot of sort of traditional enka music, and I think that really makes sort of Japanese bands stand out quite a bit from their sort of American and British and European contemporaries. So I guess the first band we'll kick off with, we heard Loudness, SDI. So let's have a little look at some Loudness records, shall we? So they were formed here in Osaka. Osaka's a heavy metal town, I'm telling you, especially in the 80s. And really, they were the first Japanese heavy metal band that they got signed to a major in America. They had sort of quite a bit of success. I saw them actually once with about 5 years ago with Ozzy and Motorhead. Pretty good lineup, right? And let's look at the record, shall we? So first LP, The Birthday Eve. And these records kind of start off a little bit rawer and get more and more polished and more commercial as we move through the catalogue. So first LP, The Birthday Eve. Devil Soldier, second LP. I love the artwork on this one. Great record. They're all great. I love all the Loudness records. Third album, this is actually my personal favourite. It's sort of just right in the middle of the kind of a bit rawer production and the more commercial stuff. The Disillusion, this is the Japanese language version with the different artwork, I think. Great heavy metal record. Fourth LP, Law of Devil's Land. Again, another great cover. All these with the Obi and everything. Thunder in the East. There we go. Beautiful. And then what's next? This one had a different title, didn't it? Yeah, this is what I was talking about. It's called Shadows of War in Japan. The American version had a little bit of a different track list. And then, this is as far as I go actually with its discography. It's Hurricane Eyes. For me, the star of this band is Akira Takasaki. What a shredder of a guitarist he was. And he had a solo LP called Tusk of Jaguar, which is a little bit all over the place. Bit of fusion, bit of metal, bit of this, that and the other. But if you ever see this in the cheap bins, I love the jacket with the Jaguar. It's a bit of a tricky record, but for me, he's definitely the star of Loudness. But there's another band, but they were formed in Tokyo. They're called Anthem, early 80s. And for me, they're a heavier band. They're more muscular, more Judas Priesty, more Accept-ish, bit less flashy. They had a bit of success in the USA, and they toured there. And even later on, Graham Bonnet even sang with them for a while. So I love all the early albums. First one from 1985, Anthem. Great, really heavy. There's a lot of sort of really good proto speed metal, or speed metal songs. Really sort of Accept, you know, Judas Priest. Oh yeah, sorry, got the Ready to Ride 12-inch EP. Oh, look at the cover on that, pretty killer. And then the third LP. This is my favourite. This is the fourth LP. Sorry, third LP is or second LP really, if you don't include the EP, is a Tightrope. Another killer, muscular record, no ballads, you know, just full bore heavy metal. And then this is my favourite. I think this is the heaviest record. This is Bound to Break, and Chris Sangarides produced this record, and great production, heavy rocking production. And so let's take a listen to a speedy number called Stealer from the first Anthem album. Let's listen to Stealer by Anthem. Whoa, that was Ripper, wasn't it? Ripping song, ripping song. I love that track. Love Anthem, great band. Next, I want to talk about a sort of high energy, fist pumping heavy metal band, again from here in Osaka, Metal City. I'm talking about this band, 44 Magnum. This is a real sort of high energy party band. I think they were formed in like 1977. I've heard stories they're a little bit tasty, sort of street fighting boys, sort of always getting into fights and stuff. People were a little bit scared of them. And yeah, from 1983 to 1986, they were on a label called Moon Records, and they signed to a bigger label called Invitation, which I'll get to later, and went a little bit more sort of AOR. And but the early stuff reminds me of sort of first LP era Motley Crue, and I love Tatsuya Umehara's, his nickname's Paul. His vocal performance on this record is amazing. He's got high-pitched voice. The riff on this song called I'm on Fire, I defy you not to raise your fist and bang your head. It's such a party tune. It's beautiful. It's raw. It's sort of real heavy metal. So let's raise a fist to I'm on Fire by 44 Magnum. Did you like that? God, I drank almost half a pint of beer listening to that. What a great song, great band. That first album, especially, top recommendation for me. All right, let's move on to a band from Nagoya called Sniper. Great name. And for me, this is the sort of most new wave of British heavy metal sounding band. It's raw, no ballads, just great riffs. And they're from Nagoya. They formed in 1981. This is their first LP. Sniper, Open the Attack. Not the best artwork in the world. There's a live shot, recorded live. Can't really tell actually, but it's really like a raw live recording. And they've got Raven Oltani, who was from the band Marino. He plays with them on this record. And back in the day, Bernard Doe gave this sort of 9 out of 10 review in issue 4 of Metal Forces magazine, which is pretty high praise. And he said, well, he predicted that they would be as big as Loudness, but that never happened. They put out like one more record called Quick and the Dead, and then they broke up. This is a ripping record, as I said. It's just really kind of more raw sounding, not so American sounding. That sort of raw British sound, new wave British heavy metal sound. So, are you ready for Sniper? And let's open the attack with Sniper.
Oh, it opens the attack!
killer song, wasn't it? Raw, heavy metal, speedy, beautiful. I mean, they broke up. It's a shame, but they've got a very short and sort of great discography they left behind. Sniper, great band. Wolf. So many heavy metal bands from around the world throughout history called Wolf, British Wolf. I love them, but today let's talk about Japanese Wolf. Again, Osaka, formed in 1985, Osaka heavy metal. This 12-inch EP is just a perfect heavy metal record. It is amazing, and it's amazing vocalist on this. It came out on Captagon Plugin Records, who only released like records by Wolf, and another band called Christ, who I don't like very much, but Christ had a bloke who was the younger brother of a member of Loudness. Anyway, Wolf, I'm telling you, this is like top recommendation from me. It's just really classic heavy metal. So I've got nothing more to say except let's have a little listen to the mighty Japanese Wolf. Did you like that? So good. That is a sort of dictionary definition of heavy metal for me. Wolf, great band. Alright, next let's move up to Urawa, Saitama, near Tokyo, mid-80s, and a band that called themselves dramatic heavy metal. It's a perfect description. Their first LP is a bit of a rare item, goes for big bucks. It's a classic. I haven't got it. It was on Explosion Records. Gonna get to Explosion Records later. And hardcore punk fans, Japanese hardcore punk fans, will know that the singer of this band, Kichi, did a bit of a stint as a bassist for Gizm. So it's a nice sort of hardcore punk connection there. This is the second LP, Sailing on the Revenge, on Nexus Records, which was also the home for Anthem. We talked about them before. Sabra Bales. You can see here it says dramatic heavy metal. Just great. I mean, dramatic heavy metal sums them up perfectly. And this is live LP, which like great cover on that. There's a little sticker at the bottom there. Came in. But for me, out of the sort of the run of early records, apart from the first album, which I don't own, I know, but it's this 12-inch called Dogfight. It's great cover. Oh, can you see this? Yeah, there's Kichi there. He's the vocalist. You might remember him on the back of the Gizm CD as well. But I love this record. It's probably my favourite 12-inch EP. So let's have a little listen to the dramatic heavy metal of Sabra Bell. Did you like that? Good stuff, eh? All right, let's go to Nagoya and a bit of a cult band called Crowley. And this is their Whisper of Evil record. Came out in 1986 on Electric Ladyland Records. Evil name, evil cover, evil looking lads, but the music is not as evil as you might think from the artwork and everything, but nevertheless, decent album. They put out an 8-inch, which is better. I know I don't have the 8-inch, and a demo. I know they're better. I don't have them. I'm sorry. You know, this is sort of an introduction to Japanese heavy metal, so we can't sort of go too deep. But I think for me, the star of this band is the vocalist Takashi Hawkhead Sean Iwai. He's got an incredible delivery and range, and you know, this is sort of meat and potatoes heavy metal from the time. You know, not too extreme. But my favourite two songs actually are both on side 2. So we've got Woman in a Black Cape, which is sort of a cross between a sort of power ballad and a sort of doom metal song. And then the final track I love, called Floating Man, which is the sort of, it's the fastest song on the record. So why don't we take a little listen to Floating Man by Nagoya's Crowley. That was Crowley and Floating Man. Great song, good album, bit of a cult album. It goes for a bit of money, you know, it's just got the artwork and the name and everything, you know, do you know what I mean? And alright, next I'm going to talk about 3 record labels that I think are very important for heavy metal in Japan. The first one is Explosion Records. Damn, what a label. Tokyo based in the 80s, I think they continued maybe into the 90s, but they had a live house too, so they had like heavy metal gigs there, Explosion, and the record label as well. I'm going to sort of show 2 records to sort of represent Explosion Records. I love both of these records. They're both sort of classics in my opinion. And you know, Explosion Records is more of the sort of more extreme, a lot more thrash. So let's have a look at this one first. Doom, not the British Doom, Japanese Doom. Their first LP. Got the flexi as well. No More Pain from 1987. This is a real high energy thrash metal record with a bit of experimentation. So of course this band's got Mr. Ko Murota, one of the best bass players of all time. Played a fretless bass. This is their first LP. It's the least experimental. They went on to become more and more experimental. People sort of lazily say, oh, they're the sort of Japanese Voivod. As not an unfair comparison, but it's a bit lazy. And yeah, what can I say about this record? I think they went on to another label after this, which I'll get to. But this is really high energy, amazing riffs, Doom, No More Pain, amazing band. Top recommendation from me. Doom, No More Pain, 1987. Yeah. Also from 1987, another sort of cult record. I mean, look at the jacket. This is of course Sacrifice, Crest of Black, and for me this record, if you're going to sort of make a bit of a lazy comparison, sort of sits halfway between the first Witchfind LP and Venom Welcome to Hell. It's not a high energy record like the Doom record. It's sort of more depressive. There's a few sort of really sort of chugging mid-pace songs, dark atmosphere, raw production, very sort of monotone vocal performance. Great picture on the back. But it's one of those records that, he's got a Saxon t-shirt, bonus points for that. And I think this bloke, he's wearing a Crass t-shirt, so double bonus points. That is a Crass t-shirt, isn't it? Amazing. But yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a sort of cult record. I mean, just the jacket, the sort of satanic imagery, sacrifice, crest of black. But I think it is a classic. And so, shall we take a listen to a little slice of Sacrifice? Ooh, evil stuff. Great stuff. All right, second label I want to talk about is an Osaka-based independent label called Night Gallery. I met the bloke once in Bar Canton, that legendary punk bar. I just sat there having a pint. This bloke was sat near me. We got talking, and I just got talking about heavy metal and everything. And I mentioned a couple of Japanese heavy metal bands that I liked, and he sort of told me, "Oh, do you know this label Night Gallery?" And so yeah, and he's like, "Wow, I used to run that label." Pretty amazing. A lot of the bands that he run his label went on to sort of become bigger bands, but one man operation, I think, just sort of small independent label. He had some success, but I'm rambling. I'm gonna show two records to represent Night Gallery records. Now, this band, the first record I'm going to show is Dead End, their first LP called Deadline from 1986. Now, this record is kind of all over the place. I'll tell you one thing though, a lot of my hardcore punk friends in Osaka love this record. Masashi from Nightmare says he can sing like every song from this record in karaoke. I understand it. It's just a mix of like thrash, proto like visual K. It's got these really catchy choruses, poppy almost, but it's got a dark atmosphere. It really, really is sort of all over the map. But the songwriting is so incredible that I love this record to death. And the vocalist Morier has got a great voice. And I was thinking, he does sound like Baki from Gas Tank. And I did a bit of research, and I did find an old interview that he did where he sort of said that Baki from Gas Tank was his biggest influence vocally. And so it was funny because when they did maybe a reformation gig in Osaka a few years back, they got Gas Tank to support. They got pretty big, I think. So they left Night Gallery and went on to Invitation label, which I'm going to talk about after this. But this is a great record. I know it's not for everybody. As I said, it's built all over the map. But for me, this is a classic. And I'm not a Visual K fan, but this is a really classy record. I love it. Dead End, Deadline, 1986, Night Gallery Records. And the next one, this is a wild one. This is a wild, wild record. Talking about this band called, it's a picture disc, but it sounds great. It sort of destroys the myth of the bad sounding picture disc. So look at that. The band is called Z-Sect. The record's called NOV. The singer's called Nov. Of course, Nov also like sang in Ion, who are an amazing like thrash band, and he sang in a band called Paranoia as well. The guitar tone on this record is this really like fuzzed out, bee stinging, wasp flying, raw buzzing sound, and it actually reminds me a little bit of Randy Uchida from Gizm's guitar tone. You want to check it out? Let's have a little listen to Z-Sect. Wild Stuff, that's a great record. You can still find it. It's not too expensive, and I think that's sort of a masterpiece in my opinion. All right, one more label. It's a major label. I think it's Invitation is a label. I think they're a subsidiary of Victor. Huge roster from pop to mainstream rock, but they also had a lot of punk bands. I think the Star Club were on Invitation, and also a lot of heavy metal bands were on Invitation. And they released this absolutely amazing compilation. Of course, I'm talking about Skull Thrash Zone Volume 1. Let's have a little look at this record, shall we? Because it's got some heavy hitters on this album. Of course, we've got Doom, that we just talked about. Shell Shock, great thrash metal band. And of course, X. And this is one of their first sort of vinyl appearances before, years before they changed their name to X Japan. Ripping thrash metal on this record. Jurassic Jade, classic band. I should have shown one of the Jurassic Jade albums to represent Explosion, but I just wanted to keep it a bit more concise. But Jurassic Jade, with the amazing woman Hizumi on vocals, they're still going, amazing thrash band. And Ground Zero, again, great thrash metal. And the iconic Rose, who went all over the place. They were hardcore, they were thrash, they played death metal. They're still going, they're a legendary band. But this is an amazing compilation for like a major label. Skull Thrash Zone Volume 1. You can see X is in big letters there, and then Doom a little bit smaller, and then the other bands are sort of in smaller. I don't like the cover, thrash with a sort of Mohican bloke playing the saxophone, but this is a great compilation. Not too expensive, a good little primer of heavy metal on Invitation. And then the next band I'm going to talk about is this band Reaction. Of course, for punk rockers, this is their second LP. First LP was on an independent, and this is a classic. Again, it's a little bit all over the place. It's got some real like muscular thrash metal songs on it, some mid-pace songs, a couple of more commercial sounding songs. But of course, Reaction put out a flexi disc on ADK Records. I think they are the only metal or rock band to put out a record on ADK Records, so that's something, isn't it? This is a great record. Again, you can find it for cheap. They press thousands. Great powerful record. Second LP called Agitator by Reaction. And then the last record, quite a famous band I suppose, but this is an amazing record, Flatbacker, and their first LP, what's it called? Yeah, it's called Senso, which means war, but it's also got like accident written on there. So Senso, War, first LP. Again, a lot of violent thrash metal on this record. The vocalist Masaki Yamada is a wild vocalist, but they made 2 LPs. They changed their name to Ezo or Ezo. Kiss got interested in them. more commercial sound. For me, it was all over. It's all about the first two Flat Bacca LPs. And Masaki even turned up as like a backing vocalist on an Onslaught record. Quite interesting. But the proof is in the pudding. And are you ready for a hard blow from the mighty Flat Bacca? Ripping thrash from Flat Bacca. What a way to end the show. We started with a ripper from Loudness and ended with a rager from Flat Bacca. Thanks for watching. I mean, today's episode was really just a sort of introduction to the world of Japanese heavy metal. We just touched the surface, but I think it's a pretty solid introduction to the 80s world of Japanese heavy metal. So thanks for tuning in, and I'm now working on a Japanese hardcore punk episode, so please look forward to that. As always, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, everybody, stay healthy and stay clean.